Now, did you go through a period of learning to discern? Is learning discernment a big part of learning
yeah.
to really perfect this communication?
Absolutely, because how do you know it's not your own ego mind messing with you, you know? And I asked Spirit that question. That's in the book, believe me. That was one of my first ones. It's like, you know, how do I know it's you? And the answer is so simple. It is just pay attention to every single word that's said. Because the ego mind is not loving. It is the opposite of a loving mind. So that's what it's for, really. So I'm quoting more or less, if what you hear is completely loving and, you know, and has only your best interests at heart, you know, it's coming from me. But if there's the slightest bit of judgment, if there's the slightest bit of cutting you down or doubt or anything about it that doesn't sound like pure and unconditional love, then you'll know that it wasn't me. I am incapable of anything less than, you know, 100% unconditional love for you.
Tell us a little bit about where you personally started, where your head was at, and where these experiences led you and to where you are today.
Okay, well, the book begins at birth, so I was very young. I was completely uninterested in religion. I was not a particularly nice person. I was extremely shy, extremely shy. Yeah, extremely shy and angry. And gently and gradually came around through those years of Buddhist practice to, you know, allowing a little wisdom or compassion to creep in and broadening my outlook. And then from 2005 until now, with practicing more universal spiritual concepts of forgiveness and oneness and all of these things, just the sense of love for humanity, things that I just never imagined were going to come out of my mouth, you know, to be truly deeply at peace and joyful, not all the time, God knows, but for amazing amounts of time at a stretch. Several days in a row sometimes, just beautifully at peace and just in love with the world. And, you know, I am somebody who historically does not like people all that much. And I'm very afraid of people. And the thought of getting up on stage and talking to people, you know, just all of those things were horrifying to me. So the changes are beyond profound. I don't even recognize who I am now from who I was then. And I like me so much better now.
Now, how important is a good familiarity with A Course in Miracles to really get the book? Should people do it in tandem? Should they be familiar with that material before they read your book?
You know, it's great either way, basically. You know, you don't have to be familiar with it. You don't even have to really be interested in it, frankly. But I did include, because I realized that if somebody is really, really taken with this material and they want to get the absolute most out of these conversations that I'm having with Spirit, there's enough context within those conversations that you don't really need to know any more than that. But if you are interested, I wrote a teeny tiny synopsis of the course. The course is like 600 pages long, right?
Right.
So we have like it's like 14 pages at the back of the book, and it's called The Crash Course. And it's written in my normal language, really the essential principles of A Course in Miracles. So if anybody, and there's a point in the book at which I say, okay, you know, if you are really interested in this, you can stop now and go and read the Crash Course and come back to this, because this is the point from which we're going to have these long conversations that are kind of course related. But if you don't care one way or the other, you'll be able to read this book without any problem at all.
Now, we're in a time right now where there's a lot of contemporary spirituality, as I call it, which means transcending traditional religious dogma and moving into a more personal relationship with all that you are. Mm-hmm. And that is really taking hold, but there's also a lot of material out there and a lot of different things saying, do this, do that. What do you feel about what's happening with spirituality today, and how do you feel like Long Time No See fits in and helps to shape a better tomorrow?
I'm glad that there is such a vibrant upswing in popular spirituality right now. I think it's all good because basically the way I see it is that everybody has their own path. It's impossible to fall off your path because whatever you're doing is on your path. It's all good, and it will all eventually lead to exactly the same place, no matter how you arrived there. So how you get there is your own choice. I have been told that it's not my problem, you know, that my only job, because we had this conversation too, in the shower actually, while I was fuming about, okay, I'll write books now, for God's sake, but I need you to tell me exactly what to write and how to write it, because nobody's going to buy me as the great spiritual know-it-all. And of course the answer was, so don't be the great spiritual know-it-all. Just be yourself and tell your own story in your own words, and I'll do the rest. Of the people who have read it so far, a gratifying and humbling number of them have said that they've really been helped by it, but each one of them cites a different area that they've really been helped by. So I can't predict. All I can do is just put the book out there and let it find its own way in the world.
So that's, in a way, that's a very pure intention. It's almost no intention. It's, I'm doing this work, I've been called upon to do this work, I feel like I'm doing this work for a reason, I'm not going to be attached to an outcome. I mean, almost your whole philosophy behind this book is a lesson in itself.
And it's a lesson I constantly relearn, because that's a tough one to just take hands off and walk away. But really, there's nothing else I can do. I don't know anything about writing books or publishing books or marketing books or or talking on camera to people. You know, this is not what I do. Apparently it is what I do now, but the only way that I can feel good about it, like I'm doing my absolute best, is to just take my hands off and say, okay, this is completely in the hands of Spirit now. You know, wasn't my idea.
So what can people expect from this book? And I don't mean as in expectations. I mean, is it laced with humor? Is it laced with,
it's hilarious,
with frankness? And, you know, tell us a little bit about
it uses the
how
F word.
How the book unfolds.
Only a couple of times.
Book that uses the F word?
It does, on purpose, because that was it was one of those unspoken concepts that I got in the shower with, you know, tell your story about your journey in your own words. And I knew that I was being given the freedom to tell it like the reader and I are already friends, and we're just sitting around and I'm being real, you know, and telling it the way I would tell it while we knock back a few cocktails.
And so you're not trying to preach to anybody, you're not trying to convince anybody of the truth. You're sharing a real, genuine experience, and the possibility that it could be beneficial to somebody else on their own path is like a bonus.
And I can't wait to see where it goes from here.
Now, the time that you were heavily involved in Buddhism, and then now you're in a different space. Now, is that a result of evolving past that, or is it a result of taking a right or a left turn in a different direction?
Well, at the risk of offending religious people everywhere, I see it as moving beyond individual religion